Murder from Within. It says that some Secret Service people were responsible for a plot to kill President John Fitzgerald Kennedy. Murder from Within, the threat of a libel suit against people that are still living that were named in the book, and it prompted a judicious decision by its authors, Fred T. Newcomb and Perry Adams, not to publish it. But the theory within this book, that it was the Secret Service who actually pulled that trigger that fateful day in November, is a legacy that has passed from father to son. Ty Newcomb was 14 years old when President John Fitzgerald Kennedy was assassinated. He was the school bugler, and as such it became his duty to play taps for 30 days following the president's assassination. It left an indelible imprint in his mind and in his heart, and Ty continues where his father left off, trying to convince all of us that a conspiracy too painful to even consider really happened, that it was our own government that pulled the trigger. An amazing theory and an amazing event. November 22nd, 1963. Everyone always asks everyone else, where were you when you heard the news? Where were you?
Elliott Junior High School, which is the same school that Sirhan attended a few years before me. And I was at gym class, training for a race.
And the loudspeakers on the school intercom came on? No,
it was a rumor circling amongst all of us from a teacher. We didn't know it for an hour after the class was over. Somebody had a radio nearby.
And you all listened?
Yeah.
And the news came, yes, he is dead.
Right.
A lot of panic, a lot of disbelief. It was a Friday afternoon.
Right.
If you were like me, we spent the entire rest of Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, just glued to the television set.
Right.
Did you cry? I cried.
Yeah. I wasn't glued to the television set because I went up to the mountains that weekend with my dad, and all we had was a radio up there. But that was the first time I ever saw my father cry.
Really?
Yeah. And I'll never forget that.
Why did your father write this book?
He was an expert in photography, and as we'll show later, he did the first analysis of that picture of Oswald holding the rifle and attempted to prove that it was a composite, a montage. That Oswald himself had said when he looked at the picture, the Dallas police showed it to him, that it was his face but not his body. So my father became intrigued when the controversy first started in mid-'66 and took that project on, and from there it just became an obsession.
Is it an obsession for his son, Ty?
It's been, I wouldn't call it an obsession. I am not, no longer as emotionally involved with it as I was in the beginning. But I think I've resolved, in my mind at least, how it happened. And I don't argue with people about my theory. People
it's
believe...
It's comfortable for you.
Yeah. People believe what they want to believe, and that's fine.
Let's go back. At the time, I think that everyone believed Lee Harvey Oswald, Jack Ruby. If we can go to just the few months before the assassination, the country at the time, 1983, it's not an election year. What was President Kennedy doing in Dallas?
1963. He was on his first campaign trip for the '64 election, is what it was. He was going down to Texas at the behest of the governor and his vice president to mend some political wars that were going on between the conservatives and the liberals, between the Yarborough liberals and the Connally and Johnson conservatives.
And of course, Johnson was, it was a very iffy situation that whether he would even be renominated as President Kennedy's running mate, and he wanted him there. And John Connally, because he and LBJ were like this, they both wanted President Kennedy there. John Fitzgerald Kennedy, 1963, had the nation in the palm of his hand. He was a fearless president. He always rode in an open car, as he did that day in Dallas. We have the first of many slides that we're going to see in a second from your private collection, but tell me, he always rode in an open car?
Not
always. Did he always have a platform that made him appear as if he were half standing, half sitting in that car?
Well, the back seat of the car could be raised and lowered at his command, or the command of the, or actually the lever, I think, was up in the front seat. But the open limousine didn't happen every time.
But just when they felt that it should.
A few motorcades, yeah.
Tell me about this photograph.
This was taken by a bystander on Main Street, and it was from his private collection. My father went down to Dallas and on several trips and searched out private photographs and collected a huge photographic collection of that day.
And that just happens to be one of many photographs that you own and many other people in this country own. The moment of the assassination, where he was, what was happening, thousands and thousands of people around. We have a book depository. We have a grassy knoll. We now in 1988 have almost too many theories. But before we see the famous Zapruder film, just tell me a little bit about the moment.
The president had, in his motorcade, he was at the very front of the motorcade, which in my father's book he says is a strange occurrence because he should have been at the end of the motorcade, and the dignitaries and the mayor and so forth should have been in front. You save your best for last.
Sure.
But he was at the front, and the press was shuffled to the rear. That's why we have no professional footage of the assassination itself. It's just amateur film taken. And in every other motorcade, the press was on a flatbed truck just in front of the president's photographing him. But that was shuffled to the rear of the motorcade by the Secret Service.
Of course, if we have a suspicious mind, we'll say, aha.
Aha, yeah.
They didn't want any evidence. And who would ever think that a man by the name of Zapruder
Who jumped up there at the last minute.
It's just incredible.
Yeah.
This film, we are in the 80s, and we've made a lot of advances technologically, so this film has been enhanced and re-enhanced and re-edited so many times. But this footage that we're about to see, you say is the best enhancement that you've ever seen.
Yes, it is. It's probably the one that my father saw at Life magazine, which is the first-generation copy of the original.
Okay, if we can look at this right now, the Zapruder tape. Here it is. Now, this was the first shot?
Behind the sign is where the president is shot in the throat. You see him grabbing his throat. Now you see the governor reacting to a shot, turning around, and now you see the president is struck in the head and driven backwards. Which is what started a lot of the controversy about whether or not he was shot from behind.
A lot of controversy about why Jacqueline Kennedy, why would she have left her husband and start to climb out onto the trunk of the limousine?
The theories that have come about from that are that she was going after a piece of his skull, which was going backwards. That's not what I believe.
That?
No. In my father's book, she's reacting in a way to get away from the source of danger, which is first law of preservation. You don't think of saving someone else first, you think of saving yourself. And if shots were coming into the car, it's very bizarre that she's trying to get out of the car.
Can we look at that in a second again and tell me, I know that we're going to get to your theory in detail a little bit later, but you're saying that the reason that she tried to climb out of the limousine
is to get away from the assassin.
Who was, in your opinion?
Well, very close by.
How close is very close?
6 feet. 6
We
feet.
can look at that again, just to see one more time Jacqueline Kennedy especially leaving. Here we have it now. He's just coming by right in perfect angle with the book depository for that first shot. And tell me the second shot.
Connolly has already hit the governor in front of the president. And now the president is struck in the head right there.
That's a repeat, of course, so that we could see her climbing out.
Jackie's instinctive reaction is to get out of the car because apparently she feels the source of danger is in the car. And that's what a lot of bystanders were saying. She wasn't going for help to try and get the Secret Service agent. She was trying to get out of the car.
Trying to escape. She herself
doesn't remember
does not remember
No.
what she was doing on the roof of that car.
On the trunk, yep.
A lot of controversy then and now perhaps we should say confusion in 1963, controversy in 1988 about the number of wounds and where the wounds were the exit wounds in the throat, where the entrance wounds in the throat. We have a slide right now that we're going to look at of the wounds, and the controversy then as compared to now would be what?
This is diagrams taken from the autopsy, and the far right lower is the Warren Commission description of the two wounds from behind that hit the president according to the Warren Commission and according to the autopsy. They are in sharp disagreement with other evidence, including the president's coat and the diagram from on the far left upper diagram from one of the autopsy surgeons who put it 6 inches below his neck, the wound that hit him in the back. Allegedly.
Just amazing. We have not until recently, of course, been able to see the actual autopsy photographs. We have been relying, the Warren Commission and then again the special congressional investigation in '77, relied both times on artist rendering of photographs that were taken during the autopsy and then sealed forever. These new photographs, just released photographs, casting even more doubt than ever on especially the single bullet theory.
Well, the single bullet theory is an issue that's been around since 1960, since the beginning. The problem was recognized by the Warren Commission, and it was a problem of timing. That the governor and the president were hit too close together for Oswald's rifle to have accurately gotten off 2 shots. And the governor himself says he remembers hearing the sound of the shot and then being hit, and hearing a separate shot for the president, which happened too close together for Oswald to have. That's what started the whole controversy against the Warren Commission.
When we come back, let's talk a little bit about the 2 investigations that have happened so far, and especially the single bullet theory. Our guest today, the day before, of course, the 25th assassination of President John Fitzgerald Kennedy, is Mr. Ty Newcomb, his father Fred T. Newcomb, and Perry Adams, a book that is yet to be published, although it is copyrighted. It's called Murder from Within, an interesting theory that we'll hear more about as we continue this interview.
Hi, I'm your...
Mr. Ty Newcomb, this is an obsession with you up to a point. People call you an assassination buff, which I think is quite a trite label for such an important mission in life. Is that how you see it, or is that how you used to see it? I must convince everybody that it really was a conspiracy, or now I'm comfortable at age 30, whatever, with my own beliefs.
I give talks on the assassination, and I show the slides and the films and lay out my theory, and 80% of the people that see it come away convinced that I have something serious there, worth considering.
Why isn't there then yet another investigation?
This, I'm firmly convinced that the government can't seriously investigate itself. And in the case of something like this, where the national security was at stake, and if our theory has any credence at all, it may have caused, had it been exposed, it may have caused a civil war.
If it had been exposed. Your father, was he threatened at all? Don't publish this, because he has had it copyrighted. It has been